I have the great pleasure to introduce Pasi Kaarto. Pasi is one of the most experienced 6-meter sailors we have in Finland, but apart from that, he's an architect and art historian, and his specialty is restoration. Restoration of buildings and restoration of classic yachts. So with great pleasure, Pasi, thank you very much for joining us. And the question I asked Pasi is, what really is a classic? What makes a classic?
Let's see.
Page.
I guess you're here right now.
It's up there.
Great pleasure to be here. I'm going to explain some ideas how to restore boats so that the only aim is not necessarily high and fast, because there are a lot of other values for old boats. There are a lot of terms which means different things to different persons. And unfortunately, also between different languages, there are some different ways of understanding. Normally, conservation is quite clear, but restoration means a little bit different in Finnish from English. Conservation is something which very few of us like to do with our vessels, because it's something persons working in museums do. They try to keep even damaged items, in this case boats, in such a shape that they don't get worse and could be shown to public. It doesn't mean that the boat in the Maritime Museum has to be in such a condition that you could sail with that. More important is that its materials and its visual approach is original, or original as close as possible. Nowadays, in our education of conservation, we concern restoration as the undertitle of conservation. That means that some things which are very badly damaged or are very necessary to be removed or changed or repaired could be done. Restoring to original is one thing very many of classic boat owners who respect the history and the traditional handcrafts skills do. And restoring to utilization means that we do fix the boat to such a shape that it could be sailed very comfortable and safely, but still we respect these historical values. Oh, sorry. I guess I pushed the wrong button.
No problem.
Perhaps you could help me.
Yeah.
Thanks. For some reason, okay. Renovation is from just common sense point of view, a very clever thing. We make things so that they are possible to use, and but we don't use any expensive materials or try to find materials from the past or skills. We could use modern methods and materials. Renewal is something a little bit heavier, and reproduction, making reproductions is we normally do that on every level because very often a piece of boat has disappeared, that we have to make a similar piece to that we plank or keel stock or whatever. But you know that some boats are reproduced as well, and this is now going to be very interesting what is going to happen with the Renata 6-meter boat, which is at the hall next to us. Obviously, the original wood material is such a bad shape that the whole boat got to be reproduced. Which way it's going to be done is going to be seen in the next couple of years. So, why do we do these things? Why do we repair boats? Many of boats you have historical significance. It could be a very typical example of the time, or it could be, it has the authentic construction has survived. Or it could be typical, but also if it has been a lot of changes during the years, which is very common, those annual rings tell the history of the vessel, what has happened to it and why. For instance, a cabin has been built very often to old racing boats after the Second World War, when, for instance, the 60s were not so common racing boats. They were changed to be cruising boats, and that's a typical annual ring, which is mark of the history. There are also stories about the boats. The former sailors who have sailed them, the stories from the competitions or cruising periods. The boat might have a significant racing history, and again, it could tell you a lot as just as an item. Of course, a boat has very important function, which is that it got to be used as a boat. It got to be safe, and it must be beautiful. One of my teachers in sailing, or as a matter of wooden boat sailing, taught me that you should have a boat which is so beautiful that when you leave it on the dock, you turn at least 3 times around to see it again before you take it out. The history of a boat could be on many different levels. Maybe Ford has sailed in Berlin Olympics under the Sven Salén, and many of us know the story that at least Sven Salén told that he would have won the Olympic medal if Adolf Hitler wouldn't come and stay on board, and he just was delayed from the start a couple of minutes because of that. You never know. Henrik Ramsey, remarkable politician, a man with a white hat, was responsible for the war and was accused for that. And that gives a special, he's kind of hero, not only as a sailor, but also because he was unfairly put into the prison. These are very typical examples of the stories of our boats. I will tell you a short story about my own boat, Elinore, which looked like this when I sailed it from Sweden to Helsinki. That was a 6-meter boat with a cabin, which has now been removed. Tapio Lehtinen helped me to find it, and how I bought it and so on. It's a story by itself, but I won't tell it now. Mä kerron tässä välillä suomeksi tämmöistä Gustav Tordenista, joka oli Elinoren rakentaja. Esimerkiksi siitä, miten tärkeitä nämä historian vaiheet ja veneisiin liittymät asiat ovat. Torden oli Blackholmin seudulta oleva kalastajan poika, joka ansaitsi omaisuuden laivanvarustaneena Suomessa ennen sotia. Ja hän rakensi Elinoren, tai itse asiassa hän sai sen lahjuksena. Sandviken, siis hietalaisen telakan. Ja sodan loppuvaiheessa hän päätti sitten lähteä karkuun Suomesta, ja hän otti 2 uutosta mukaansa, yhden tämmöisen kiniveneen ja koko muun omaisuutensa. Häntä pidetään roistona Suomessa siitä syystä, että hän jätti maksamatta kaikki sitoumuksensa ja velkansa suomalaisille liikemieskumppaneille. Kun tulin Ruotsista, sattui olemaan Hangon regatta ja sain sidottua mielestäni oikein taitavasti laituriin tultuani niin veneen siihen päälaiturin muiden uutosten rinnalla, niin muutama vanhempi mies, jotka olivat jo menettäneet jotain Tordenin säälläyksissä, niin tulivat ja sylkäsivät minun uuden hankkeeni. No, sodan aikana hänellä on 2 persoonallisuutta, roisto ja sankari. Sodan aikana hän oli keskeinen henkilö, joka hankki varoja ja sopimuksia niin, että saatiin näitä Volvo-kuorma-autoja, joilla hoidettiin liikenne Vetsamon tiellä, joka oli talvisodan aikana tämmöinen verisuoni. Hän myös, hänen laivoillaan vietiin kultaharkkoja Suomen Pankista Englantiin näitä aseostojen rahoittamiseksi, mutta 1 harkko sinne. Hän oli merkittävä henkilö vaikuttamassa siihen, että juutalaiset, jotka olivat uhattuna joutua Saksaan sodan aikana, niin pääsivät Petsamon kautta hänen laivallaan karkuun liittyneiden maihin. Ja sitten vielä hän ajoi toisen maailmansodan loppuvaiheessa kaikki laivansa amerikkalaisiin satamiin, jossa ne takavarikoitiin välittömästi vihollisen aluksina. Sen jälkeen hän, kun sota oli loppu, kävi 2 vuotta oikeutta Washingtonissa ja voitti oikeudenkäynnin, koska hän pystyi osoittamaan, että ne eivät olleet vihollisvaltion laivoja, koska hän oli Ruotsin kansalainen. Ja hän sai niin paljon rahaa, että hän osti 2 rahtilaivaa ja kokonaisen laivanrakennustelakan ja toisen sitten Etelä-Ruotsiin ja menestyi siellä viikymiehenä jatkossa. Ja teki kyllä sitten vielä konkurssin. I guess these kind of stories give a lot of more values to these boats you are selling. And so if we think about this, these values, how they should be respected and handled, I have made a line here on top that these historical values increase and they are not so very much. Now, when you get an old boat, it would be wise to think a little bit about how the changes you are planning to make, what kind of influence they have. Of course, conservation, if we think about authenticity and historical values, is the most valuable. But it doesn't mean that I'm pointing out that you should conserve your boats and so on. They go down here, and reproduction, from my point of view, is not so at all so valuable, because this kind of final reproductive vessel, it doesn't have the history and it doesn't have the stories, and very often it's made a different way. Of course, the order of these things could be discussed. But if we value more the possibility to use the vessel, of course, this kind of improved replica means that something a completely new wooden boat made using modern technology, but which looks like old one and could be even built into old plans. That's most useful and gives you best safety and performance to sail. And again, conservation is at the very lowest end, because you cannot sail with that kind of boat. There is a balance, of course, somewhere here, and that should be chosen in each case separate. This is example of Gin, which is a 6-meter boat restored in Kotka 10 years ago. It's a sparkling steel design, and it was imported to Finland from Argentina, I guess. Yes. Yes. Very much efforts were put when decision the methods of restoring the boat, and that meant that high and fast was pushed a little bit apart, and beauty and authenticity was rising up. And it was done completely different frame from this tradition. 6-meter boats were repaired up until that. It's a double blanket construction, and it was decided to save most of the inner surface blanket. Another example is quite modern in German, in Robert and Perkin classics Werkstatt. A Nirvana is built following the drawings, but using a modern way of wooden boat building. And of course, this kind of boat is, from my point of view, a new boat, not a classic boat. It looks like something, but is not. So, when you start to make a restoration plan, you should decide how the vessel should look. Is it going to be looking like original or something, how it looked in the middle of its history? And you should think very carefully for what you are going to use it. And after that careful thinking, you could do those decisions how to restore. For example, if the target is just conservation, of course you use just conservation and restoration methods. Original materials, original tools, and you try to save as much as possible. And what you get is historically very valuable vessel. If you respect heritage of sailing sport, you probably should choose something like restoring to original, making the boat back to its original shape, or pretty much near to that, and then what you get is a fleet respecting tradition like this sailing club does, which you will just celebrate. And if you want to have a racing boat, which most very many 6 meters, for instance, do, you could do a reproduction, completely new boat, or then renew as much as possible to very modern technique to improve the stiffer, to get a stiffer hull and better rigging and so on. Or you could even build a improved replica. I guess that in the near future we are going to see at least 3 or 4 Lanoras and 2 Gooses and whatever, because these are so tempting and you get likely winner. But if you don't have a possibility to have a old boat, what should you do to get the classic? Just you should build one now and wait 50 years and you have a classic.